Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. Thank you, Will, so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So for those of you who can't see above, this session is called Building an AI-First Marketing Strategy. Today's guest is someone who turned a simple act of wanting to volunteer on his lunch break into the spark that launched a full-blown digital powerhouse. When his boss said no, he said, "Watch me," and SEER Interactive was born. A company built on the wild idea that you can crush big brand goals and uplift your community at the same time. He's a globally respected voice in SEO and digital marketing, the founder who grew a living room startup into a B Corp agency, partnering with everyone from mid-market challengers to Fortune 500 giants. And through it all, he stayed committed to putting people, purpose, and impact at the center of real digital innovation. Please welcome, everyone, the one and only Will Reynolds. Thank you, Will, again.
Yes.
And the crowd goes wild. All right, well, to set the tone for today's chat, as VP of Innovation at SEER Interactive, a very fun title and a very unique title, which I'm excited to get into, how do you define innovation in the context of digital marketing, of a digital marketing agency today? Also, what do you think that role looks like day to day when the industry is evolving so fast towards AI and data-driven marketing?
Ooh. All right, so let's take the first part of that. I think a VP of innovation, or anybody because that's just the title we gave me. It's people who look at the current state of how things are done and looks at the barriers, I think, that people have told themselves are immovable. And they go, are they really immovable? Do we really have to accept the thing that we've just been told?
Yeah.
And your job becomes to press on those kinds of things to see what you might surface if the thing that people have long held believed that that's not doable or that's not possible or that's hard, and say, well, what if it wasn't? What if it was possible? What could we have done if that was possible? And it causes you to just press a lot on those kinds of things and see what comes out of them. Most times it's an education. You realize that, a lot of these barriers exist for a good reason. And you're hoping that once in a while you come up with one or two things that goes, oh, okay. Like that was a story we had been telling ourselves for a long time that wasn't totally true. What would it look like if we were to solve for that?
No, I love that outlook, because I think that, boundaries should be pushed a little bit, especially for where like knowledge is concerned and how you're used to doing things. I think that's incredibly important. I mean, like the biggest scientific discoveries would never be discovered if no one was like, this is something seems off about this. I'm just going to look into it.
You know what it is, like for real, is it's I try to unpack what makes me think the way I think. And I think one of the things is, fortunately or unfortunately, I tend to believe that everything is some kind of a hypothesis. So, if my kids are eating a certain food, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I put this in that food that they said they didn't like. Like, how much pepper could I put in something before they're like, oh, it's spicy? Like, it's everything.
You're evil that way.
Cool. But no, my point there is just more like, it's like everywhere. I think that's one of the things I've learned to realize is, for me, the concept of testing and getting data and feedback loops is everywhere for me. I just ran the Philly Marathon yesterday and I was going through my splits.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And everything is like a hypothesis. Like, okay, so I trained for this. How did I do in those miles? But then I stopped being able to do that. Was it my fueling strategy? So next time I run another marathon, like, do I have to change how I fuel? Do I have to change this? Do I have to change that? And then I will change those things and then see if the outcome is different. I just apply that same thinking to everything I do at work.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. And I think that's a really great way to think about things, because then you're not necessarily set in your old ways of certain things. Like, you are constantly thinking about, I think clients are really appreciative of things like that too, because they feel like you're constantly looking for what could be better, rather than just being complacent with something that might work, but not necessarily be most optimal. And that's like the best way of looking at things, to make sure that you're constantly adjusting for new things like AI.
Yes, like AI.
So speaking of AI, I've seen that SEER is specifically pushing into GEO, or some people are calling it like AEO or whatever it may be. Um, what are the differences in mindset, like process for optimizing for AI driven search results rather than traditional SEO? Because I think a lot of people are worried about the change that's happening.
So I would say if I was a client, the number one thing that I would be concerned about is that the people most likely to say that SEO and GEO are the same thing are all SEOs. And then what I would look at is I would say, because that's the dangerous part. It's like if this is how I feed my family is by being an SEO, and SEO is on my title, and then I'm watching my traffic decline, and I'm watching like maybe my ability to track my impact decline, then it is in my best interest for me and my family to tell you that whatever you think this new thing is just the same thing that I do, right? So therefore, any SEO who tells their client that it's just the same thing, GEO and SEO are the same, you have to realize that your client should look at that with a skeptical lens, because it's like, well, you have a dog in that fight. Like you have a dog in that fight. Like if you said SEO is totally different than GEO, then what would that mean for your job? And they're like, well, I wouldn't really have one if it was totally different. Or I'd have to start all over again. Or all the things that feed my ego about how good I am at SEO don't apply anymore. So like, ooh, that doesn't feel good to be. I think that's another thing. When you're a VP of innovation, or when you're in an innovative role, or you try to bring innovation to your role, how comfortable are you going from this high level of expertise, oh, it's Will, blah, 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 to going back to being a fucking rookie all over again and starting from scratch? For a lot of us, we spend so long in our career journey becoming a person that other people see as knowledgeable, that anything that knocks that knowledge off directly affects your ego, because you've worked so hard for so long at becoming a knowledgeable person at this thing. And now something new comes along. The speed by which you can give up who you used to be to become who you need to be for your client to be successful for them tells you a lot about yourself, right? So I think managing that ego component is really, really critical. For me, I think there's a bunch of things that work in GEO that are very important for SEO as well. But what we haven't really done, maybe I should do this now that I'm talking to you about it, is literally lay out like what is a typical SEO process like. For instance, keyword research. Great. I have to figure out what words people are typing in to know what words to optimize. Makes a ton of sense. In a geo world, it's like, well, you don't have SEMrush that gives you what people typed in. There is no Google ad tool to tell you how often people are typing that word in. Is it more? Is it less? In a world where all that's gone, how are you doing keyword research to figure out what prompts to put in? Now, what I will tell you is the average SEO will never give you this answer. I interview people and ask them to do things on the internet using LLMs so I can understand what might be different about how they ask questions. How often can I take a prompt and have 5 different clients or customers run it to see how different the answers are based on the personalization? This is where we got to be. Right. But for somebody to say SEO, GEO are the same, you're like, well, the first thing you have to do is keyword research to even make the business case. How are you doing that research? I'll put some stuff in. I'll make up some prompts. It's like, that's fine for now, but that's different process. Right.
Yeah. And I think that it is very like there's transferable skills from like and like to your point is that like the process has changed because of the way in which you're doing something, but it's still like you're still technically doing the keyword search. You're just doing it in a different way than you were before.
Yeah. The problem though is the way to do it requires you to talk to a human.
Yeah,
The way to do it requires
isolated.
you to get a panel of people to be like, so now you got to convince somebody. And when we as SEOs have spent so long working on how to convince algorithms, how do I convince Google to think that I'm right for this answer is a very different skill set than how do I get a human that's got a lot of other things to do to invest their time in allowing me to see how they use an LLM. So just because you So just because you can speak to somebody doesn't mean you know how to convince them to part with their time to invest in something that you need. So that's like one of the things, right? So then you have to think like, all right, if I'm an SEO, how often am I using things like sales transcripts? Like, how often am I using sales transcripts in order to be able to refine my prompts? For most people, including us right now, we have a couple clients that are letting us do it, but for most, it's zero. So you're like, oh, so you made up these prompts, put them into this tool to track your visibility, and you've never created a check on that to see, are people saying different things in sales calls? Nope. So I think that like that alone just gives you an example of how these two things aren't the same, but then you go through everything else. Getting your keywords on the page, it was a great idea, right? So I've shown examples like this several times where you show like a page and you show a bunch of text at the bottom of the page that really talks about the things you want to rank for. And then I show how that worked in Google and how that no longer works in ChatGPT in certain places. And when you show that to people, you're like, well, if this still worked, again, oh, GEO, SEO are the same. Okay, cool. So if that's true, then why did this block of text rank this web property number 6 for this keyword, but they're invisible on the top 10 models for the same exact prompt? If it was the same, how could that happen? And now all of a sudden, when that question gets asked, the SEO gets nervous. The SEO person is now like, and now you've lost credibility, which is why SEOs should not just say, oh, GEO, SEO are the same, because when your client finds an example when it's not, you look like you were just being defensive and you were protecting yourself instead of protecting them.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point to be made, because I think that a lot of people, to what you said earlier, a lot of people are really worried about the fact that their expertise are no longer valid. And that's not necessarily true. Like, having that lens of being experienced in SEO is still important, but you just have to account for all of these changes. Like, I think that the way you go into looking at it is still valuable, from like if you're well versed in the space, but at the same time you have to kind of start from the beginning again. And I think, like you said, people are really afraid of doing that and admitting that they don't know something if they've been so versed in it for so long.
And it's a reset. It's a reset. So, I just try to empower people. Like, honestly, like if you're tracking a bunch of GEO prompts, I would ask you, if you're a person running a business right now, take your last few sales calls and check them against what you're tracking.
Yeah. That's a simple way to be able to to understand your clients as well, because I think that what's so odd about AI coming into the game is that so many people say that it can make your work more efficient and like give you more time to do the important things, quote unquote. But a lot of times people ignore clients even more, I feel like, now with like AI, like client considerations even more now, because they have AI to rely on for certain things rather than directly asking or looking into customer conversations. And I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. I think if it was me and I was an SEO today and I had not, and I was able to be honest enough with myself that these are not a one for one, and I was looking for what skills have I underinvested the most in that would help me in an AI world, given what I've said so far. I'd be like, you're gonna have to get really good at talking to people in your company about what you need from them for them to be able to help you to help them show up in AI. So for instance, we just did a research study that showed that in SaaS, over 50% of, we looked across all of our client accounts in that vertical, and I think it was like 54% of all conversions that came from AI search landed on the homepage. And it's like, ooh, okay, so we used to create all these subpages that led to traffic. And now it's like maybe the LLMs are like reading those pages and putting them in their answers, but maybe people don't need to click through as much. Because what's happening, once they narrow down the people they want to work with, somehow we're finding that the conversions are typically coming in on your homepage, which is telling, right? Which means they're looking at the brands, the site, those websites specifically. Well, then as an SEO person, you used to could just go off on these pages nobody really looked at, and write these low quality posts or whatever you're doing
Yep.
and put your text at the bottom of a page. And because it was out of the way of the marketer who has to balance all these different things, like what do the different customers want? How many different ICPs do I have? How do I give enough to each person? You got to extract yourself from those conversations for years. Well, now your extraction by going over into SEMrush, right? Or Ahrefs or whatever you were using, your extraction from those conversations is now a freaking liability because you don't know how your company has chosen what should go on the homepage. So you can't even speak the language of the decision makers in your company because you've never sat at the table and tried to understand how they did it. You used to think it was a blessing to be like, great, I don't have to deal with all that BS. I don't have to be in these marketing meetings with all these people fighting over dumb shit. I'm going to go build these pages nobody's going to read, but it's going to juice the search engines just enough for me to get some conversions and get some traffic, and everybody will stay off my ass, thank God. Now it's like, well, how are you going to help convince me to change my homepage when I just showed you that 54% of conversions are coming from my homepage? So you should be bringing me an idea of how do I help you to change your homepage when the referral is an LLM? Because though that's 54% of our conversions, we should do something differently. And now the problem is you go, well, put this content at the bottom of the page or do this. It's like, whoa. I'm not doing that on my homepage. Oh, put this word in here. I'm not doing that on my homepage. And now you're like, well, that's all I've really studied. I haven't studied all the other parts that I should have been studying. So now I can't offer value when SEER comes out with the research study and we go, hey, here's the research. Here's the data. We looked across all these accounts and found this out. It's like, oh shit, I've underinvested in that. So just start investing in the areas where you have underinvested in and do it quick, fast, and in a hurry so that you're still relevant when these questions are being asked.
No, I think that's an incredible point to be made because and tell me if you agree with this, and it seems like by what you're explaining that you do, is that with AI it heavily involved in search now, I think that it's almost because for the longest time people were trying to, for lack of better phrasing, trick Google in the idea that they were exactly what you're saying, creating low quality posts that were just making them come up. And now I'm almost seeing, and I see this as a very positive thing, at least for now, of how it's working, of that doesn't work anymore. And like that probably shouldn't, but I feel like that shouldn't be that shouldn't be what's prioritized. Obviously, like actual valuable knowledge should be prioritized. And I think I think people are pushing for that more if they understand GEO because of that switch, or like that's what's going to show up better, and like your actual content will be showing up on these searches rather than just your website. And I think that that's really cool.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we're hoping for. But let's talk about pressure in organizations. One of the number one problems is you've got CEOs being like, oh, I'm using ChatGPT now, so I asked it a question about my business and I didn't show up. Well, most CEOs, most executives have no idea that you have to look at the reasoning to see whether or not it personalized out your answer because it knows you're the CEO. So if you asked me to recommend a company and I was like, oh, SEER, you're like, well, I already know that you run a company that does this. Why would I give you, if you're asking me, Will Reynolds, if you're asking me for a list of SEO companies, why would I give you your own company? Because obviously you know your company exists. I have shown how different reasoning models will do that based on personalization. But your CEO goes, we're not showing up. And it's like, right. So that's an education process that needs to happen. But then that pressure comes down. And I think this is how you end up with short-term tactics because people are sick of the C-level pressuring. Why am I not showing up? So then I think there's a bunch of short-term tactics that work right now. You can put white text on a white background and get all up in those LLMs. You can create low-quality listicles that just list out your agency at the top because obviously everybody says we're number one, and then there's 9 other companies that we don't really compete with. We're going to put on those lists, and they show up more in LLM answers. That's great. I'm never doing that. Like, what do you mean I'm going to create a listicle and put my company at the top? If I ever created a listicle page, what I would do is I'd be like, I'm putting this stuff at the bottom. I literally would build a page. It's like, I think listicles suck. and I'm putting these companies at the bottom to gain visibility, but I'm going to create an LLM box above those answers to be like, why don't you actually tell me what your real problems are? And I'm going to use my 20 something years of experience to refer you to some company that I think could solve this problem for you. But I'm not just going to be like, go into deep research, get me the top 10 enterprise SEO companies, and then just copy and paste it in. It's like, it's garbage, but it works. And I think what's going to happen is C-levels need to be, and I think C-levels typically value people that tell them the news they don't want to hear sometimes. But most people in your organization tell you what you want to hear. So therefore, the people who are willing to say, hey, let me give you the examples. Back in 2004, these kinds of things would work on Google. So it was early Google. These kind of things worked. And do you see these penalties that Google would levy on websites that did those things after a couple years? I'm protecting you from that. So yes, I can get you the visibility right now if you want it. These are the tools that I have that could change that overnight. My fear is we may not show up for our own brand for a month once they figure out that the whole internet is polluting the answers with that, because that's already been proven and that's a fact. And only old heads with a lot of gray hair like me remember what it was like when JCPenney got banned in Google, when BMW got banned in Google, when Disney got banned in Google. So you're like, wait, you're telling me that at one point BMW got banned in Google for the word BMW for like a month. And you're like, yes, that happened. And they're like, oh, wait, so you're protecting me from that? I'm like, yes, because my short-term gains on some low-quality shit that we're going to get banned for potentially is not worth you not showing up for your brand for a whole month inside of the LLMs, because what they're going to do is they're like, oh, we don't want this stuff to work. So if they can find a way to penalize the companies that do it, we already have proof of this. This happened 20 years ago. It's nothing new, so like, your mileage may vary, but I want my brand to show up in the answers forever. And I don't want to risk that for a short-term gain. Not trying to do that.
I completely agree. I think that's one of the most exciting things about AI driven search, because I just think that I think that it's one more step towards like actual value being provided, and then exactly, and then there's probably going to be even more steps towards like solidifying that that's most important, and that is so exciting, because I think that many people can be pessimistic about AI and for completely valid reasons. Sometimes I completely understand certain pessimism towards it or wariness, but I think that for specifically this, at least, it's kind of exciting to know that maybe like people that are not providing value might be weeded out. And of course,
that's it.
We've even seen it in we're a SaaS company, and we've seen it in our industry. There are a lot of people that have a similar a similar company structure to ours that are no more, or like are having a lot of trouble right now because of things like that. And it's scary to see, but it's also like we should be providing value to our clients and potential clients, and we should have always been doing that.
Just because this low quality shit worked for a little while doesn't mean that was the job to be done. I think what we got confused, we got it twisted on like, what is the actual job to be done against what are the tactics that I'm doing? And I think when you look at the difference between those, you're like, the job to be done was to help people find answers. Because when I use Google, the last thing I want to see is a bunch of spam. When I use Google, the last thing I want is somebody putting a bunch of content at the bottom of a page to rank for something when the page ain't really about it, because the company's not really about it. Yet, as frustrating as that was when we Googled shit, we went and turned around and did that stuff for our clients, so that when all of their customers were Googling stuff, they would find these pages. It's like, no, maybe it's just time for us to, I don't know, be real marketers who have talked to real people that actually buy our products and services, and stop hiding behind keyword tools and Screaming Frog. I've never gotten a customer insight from Screaming Frog, right? And it's okay that's not the tool for that. But I think so much of our tech stack is based on things that don't, I think too much of our tech stack is based on algorithmic signals, not human signals. And that's my biggest beef with some of the things that we use to determine how we do our jobs.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with that. I'm not even technically in the SEO space, but I hear for the longest time talking about these like ways to trick, like these ways to like, and it's crazy that it's even put in that format and people are proud of it. You know, like I like if the word trick is being used, then maybe it's not like maybe it's not valuable. And like speaking of that, and we're kind of talking about a lot of we talked about a little bit ago of the risks that can be made of people misunderstanding what this is kind of going towards, or we hope it's going towards. What are other risks that you see for brands that are leaning a little too heavily with AI generated content search optimization as well?
So let's go back to I think the thing I tend to rail on the most these days are listicles. So for many of us, we are positioning our content to decision makers and people that are, I don't know, they're somewhat wise. And I tend to believe like it's still just humans, man. It's like if you gave me a list of companies on your website that said these are the best 10 SEO companies, and you were at the top, everything in my marketing brain fires off being like, oh, I would never trust you. Like, who would trust a company? Like, we see billboards, Coors Light, America's favorite beer. Not for me, it's not, dog, right? So we know, it's funny, we are used to organizations saying we're the best at whatever.
Oh yeah.
People have been doing that since the invention of marketing.
The hundreds of pizza places in New York City.
Yeah, right. Number one New York pizza in New York, right? Exactly. So because we're used to that, I think most humans have developed a skepticism of when somebody says they're number one. If I'm buying this microphone and I go to the website and they go, we're the number one microphone for podcasters, I'm like, well, I'm not going to believe that.
I'm already
like, I'm not going to believe it because you said it. Like, So then why would we then go and create listicles that put us at the top? Because I think the only thing that does, in my opinion, is go, I trust you less, not more. And I think that the thing that is going to happen with AI is you've got to realize that so everyone should take their AI generated content and look at what percentage of the traffic from that AI generated content comes from search or AI, okay? And if you don't see anything that comes from social or direct or referrals, it means that your content is built to suit algorithmic proxies for what humans actually want. So why not try to write the content that humans actually want? So if you've got 95% of my traffic to this URL came from Google or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and 5% came from things like direct, email, places where humans share stuff with other humans, you got a problem. Because at some point, a human's going to have to read this to make a decision. We don't have agents picking our agencies yet. We don't have agents buying my kids' soccer shoes yet, right? So I still am going to, at some point, have to read a thing that's going to have to pass a human sniff test. But if all your content you write never gets shared by humans, ever, isn't that an early warning signal that you've overweighted trying to please the algorithms and underweighted trying to please the people? So that's the first thing that I would do if I was looking at this balance of AI content, AI driven content, is I would be like, if I put this on LinkedIn, would it take? No. Well, why? 'Cause it's shit. That's why. Would I email this? If somebody invited me into a private group of my top marketers to follow, would I post that last post that I just wrote to that group, that private WhatsApp group, that private email group, that mastermind group? Oh, I would never post that. Oh, but you're okay. You're okay putting it into the world for other people to read it. But if your name was attached to that, you would not put that into the world? Oh, no, they would throw me out of the group. So now my thinking is what content only performs in search? And try your best to pivot that content in a way that can start to win for humans, because now you know you've got a flywheel that, hey, when humans see it, they're going to share it to their friends. Awesome. That's the only way you can get traffic from WhatsApp. It's the only way you can really get traffic, technically, quality traffic from Reddit or places where humans are talking to other humans, right? So once you say, wait, now when humans share with other humans, I'm winning. And then if it also ranks, that means, because we're not ranking stuff just to rank it. We are ranking stuff so a person gets to it and says, ooh, I want to hire this company. Ooh, I want to buy this thing. So the flywheel happens when somebody gets to your content, that's a human, and says, this was really good. Let me go share that via email. Let me go send that to my WhatsApp group. So now the search visibility, if it's something that humans care about, just continues to build on itself in this flywheel. So you got to take the search visibility or the AI visibility, make sure that visibility is quality enough that when people see it, it also has a high propensity of them sharing it somewhere else.
Completely agree. How do you recommend people create this content then? Because especially if brains are so geared towards pleasing people or like pleasing the algorithm, how do they like change their mindset towards creating content that is actually valuable?
One thing I would do, now this is just using my own data so I can talk about it, is I would start to look at my conversion rate from non-algorithmic sources against algorithmic sources. And right now what we find, given the month, I can get anywhere between 8 to 12x more conversions from social than I do from social, direct, humans than algorithmic. So what I've realized now is I can get 20,000 visitors from search in a month and get 60 newsletter signups, let's just say, or I can get 2,000 visitors from social and get 60 newsletter signups. So you've got to look at like, am I able to win over humans here? Because if that percentage is high enough, you're like, wait, I need a lot less traffic on social than I need on organic search because the shit is so good that when people read it, they go, ooh, I might want more from that company, which again is a very good signal because now I know I'm winning the human, which gives me a whole new confidence on my next piece of content. It gives me a whole new set of confidence on my ability to drive value for my company. Whereas when you just have a ranking report, it's like it got ranked. But when people got there, were they like, ooh, I'm glad I read this or not? I don't always know. So that's one of the things that I would be looking to kind of pivot in the way that I looked at my content. The other thing is the more you use AI to generate your content, in my opinion, the more it starts to like regress to the mean. So like if everybody says a thing, it's going to start to predict like, you got to realize like, because the answers, think about how bad the answers would be if it didn't take the popular opinion that it can find and then be like, we're going to kind of all it's like a funnel. We're going to funnel everybody down into the popular opinions. So if I go to ChatGPT or Google or Gemini or whatever, I'm like, what are the best agencies? It's like, well, we're going to try to look for awards and this and that. And then whatever the best ones are, we're going to tell everybody that. So now everybody that writes best agency articles are going to get the same agencies almost every time because it's repeating it. So now what happens is your content has just become the same as everybody else's. It's the ability to take the step back and say, all right, so for us, one of the things that we're doing is we're actually using AI to interview our SMEs, our clients' SMEs. And I did this for 6 months and I got the proof to show it works because my LinkedIn traffic blew up like 1,200% more conversions. How does that, 1,200% more traffic, right? How does that happen from LinkedIn? Because I would use a tool that interviewed me about things that I had written in the past. And then it would ask me a series of questions and I'd go for a walk and I would just talk in all my answers. And then I would take those things, take the hot takes, whatnot, put them in a blog post and put them on LinkedIn. And surprisingly, people like hearing from people that have opinions. Shocker, right?
Whoa.
Shocker. So, and I got the data to prove how it took off. I got the pipeline to show how that impacted our pipeline. So like, this is real. You will never get that. If I said, write me an article for Will based on this topic, I could try like 15 different prompts after that to try to get it in. Or I could just have something ask me really challenging questions and go for a walk for 10 minutes, answer them all, and then use the AI to kind of trunk it down and cut it up and to figure out what I said. One, you're going to get faster approval cycles because I'm an SME. So I know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? So you get faster approval cycles because I'm like, that's just what I said. So it's easier for me to get the content approved when I'm like, yeah, that's what I said. It's my quote. One. The next thing that you get is you get this, like, if you can prompt the AI correctly to give you really thought-provoking questions, you're going to result in me being like, damn, that's a good one. I haven't thought of that. Huh. All right. Why don't I da, and I'm thinking this, and I'm thinking that, and I'm thinking this. So now all of a sudden you're taking an SME with 25 years of experience and you're asking them challenging questions about their old posts relative to the things that have changed in their industry. And now you're only spending 10 or 15 minutes of my time. I could give you so much content in 15 minutes of me just talking to an AI. So we've got clients now. We built an AI that basically interviews the client, asks the client questions, and now I'm getting stuff that works on social because it's opinion driven, because it's an SME, which you're never going to get in a generic AI written thing. So I'm getting opinion pieces, which is good for the human to human piece, which is where all the conversions are coming from. And I get all the content that I can then put in the post that's also going to help me with the SEO. And it's also going to help me with the AI, I believe. Now, what I will tell you is when you interview somebody that really knows their shit about their craft, they don't regress to the mean. That's why they're a subject matter expert, right? They don't regress to the fucking mean. Nobody wants to have me go on stage and be like, Will, talk about SEO. And I go, you know what you need to do? Keyword research, link building, and technical SEO. People will be like, get this guy the fuck off stage. They'd be like, get him off the fucking stage now. That's useless. What they want from an SME is, what is a thing that you're doing that's not the typical checklist of things to do? And with Google, there's this thing called information gain, which is when Google looks at the top 10 and they all look the same, they start boosting posts. They have the ability in their algorithm to boost a post that brings a new way of thinking to the problem. So if Google's already doing that in their algorithm now, and I've already got proof that that is literally happening. We have a client that's doing these posts with us via voice. That's happening. We're watching their rankings go up, not because they put the word on a bunch more times, not because they put a block of text at the bottom. It's because Google is gaining information about this topic because every other person optimized a post, left it on the website because it's ranking. Why would you continue to optimize a post that's already ranking? Because if it's old, when the humans get to it, they're like, oh, you're talking about old search engines that don't exist anymore, or you're talking about this that doesn't exist, or you're not talking about AI, and AI is like the big thing. So my long-winded point there is you get all this extra information that Google's like, wait a second, if all these posts are ranking well and they're all kind of old, then anybody who comes along with a newer take on it, I'm going to boost, because otherwise the customer just gets the same answer no matter what they click on.
I love this. One way is, like, what you're explaining is such a good balance between like human-centered feedback as well as using AI to make it even better. And I think that that's like a struggle that people are really having at this point in time with AI, because they're either over relying on it or not relying on it at all in any way. And both are not effective. Like, both are not going to get you to a certain space, or you're going to be left behind, or you're going to be generating really bad content. And like, what you're saying is taking actual human feedback, responses, knowledge that is not just what else is out there, because that is what AI can generate without asking someone else. But it can make your it can make what you have already produced better. It can take from content that you've already created before and incorporate that into more relevant content.
The number one thing you can do is just say, hey, here's a blog post I wrote 4 years ago about a topic, or here's a LinkedIn post that I did 4 years ago. What has changed about the topic since? Right? What's changed? And then do it in deep research, because then when you do it in deep research, it's got time to go out and find all the sources that you can pick and go, oh, well, Deloitte came out with a study that invalidates what you said 4 years ago. What do you think about that now, Will? Now you're going to get really detailed information. You're going to get a real opinion, versus just like, Deloitte said this, quote. It's like, no, we don't want to just do that and run deep research and then copy and paste it in and make a blog post. I want to get it in the hands of an SME that knows what they're talking about. And I want to use as little of their time as possible, because they got a lot of other work to do. The reason why content marketing even exists, for the most part, is because SMEs did not have the time to write the content. If SMEs had time to write content, you would have never needed a content marketer to go out and try to figure out, well, how do I put a page together that says these things? They'd be like, well, I would just write it. Like, now, mind you, they need some direction. What are the things people are searching for? Do I need internal links to make this page show up? Do I need external linking? So there's value there. But I think the actual physical writing of a piece of content technically should have never been done by anybody other than the people who know what the freak they're talking about.
Yeah.
Technically, you know, and I wrote a blog post about this. You know, we allowed a content marketer in our company at the time to basically help write a post on our site about how to do an SEO RFP. And, you know, we did the keyword research, found it was a keyword. We said, well, who's typing that in? Enterprises, that's who we work with. Great. We should write about that. Great. All that helpful. We're not writing about it. We should. But then what happened is it was like, use this keyword in the H1 and use this thing here. And then what is everybody else saying? And then how can we kind of say the similar thing? And it ranked and it got posted and it did well. Well for everybody else's fucking KPIs. It ranked in the top 3 or 4. It was great, you know, because it ranked. I looked at it and was like, I would not send this piece of trash to any of my friends. I said, I've been doing this every day of my life for 26 years. If somebody asked me, how should I pick an SEO agency? I would not have told them anything on that post. So then I just rewrote the thing. So I think there's a level above it gets visibility or it ranks that the minute we start to hold ourselves accountable to something higher than it ranks or is visible, you start to have an honest dialogue with yourself about would I actually send this to my friends? That's what you really want, is you want an SME to be like, if I Googled this and found this, would I send it to my friends? Maybe with my commentary. But when the post is like, no way, I never would send this to my friends, I think it's way off, then why is it on your website? If the people inside of your company that do the work are like, there's no way I'd ever send this out to my friends, then why would you allow it to stay on your website?
I think that's a really great lens. Mic drop.
Fuck that, right? Like
that is a really great lens, because you should be putting, like, if you are not willing to be proud of your work and send it to people that you care about for a specific purpose, then it's not quality work.
Well, here's the other thing is an SME cares. Their KPIs are often more like their internal, what makes their heart tick isn't I got ranked. What got their heart going isn't, ooh, it got a link. They want to actually help people get the right answer. So it's the purest place of like, hey man, I mean, the best SMEs, in my opinion, the best SMEs are people that are like, even if you didn't pick me, I would want you to be smarter as a result of reading this so you could pick the right software for your company. You could buy the right toy for your 7-year-old, 8-year-old that's into Marvel, whatever it might be, right? That exists not in an SEO. Because what makes an SEO's heart tick? It got ranked, it got a lot of traffic. So therefore, once my boxes are checked, it got ranked in traffic. I'm so happy with myself. An SME will actually read the content and go, yeah, but like, how did you not mention these things? They're like, who cares that I didn't mention those things? Because it ranks and it's getting conversions. And they're like, but if you're really into Marvel, you would know that this thing and that thing and right. So it's like, yeah, I think you really have to, you want to find the people who don't get tripped up by the metrics that are at best leading indicators, right? You want to find those people in your organization and be like, now, what would you write if you could to help people figure out the best toy to buy for somebody into Marvel or the best VoIP software to pick? They're going to have real opinions. Why not just get them something that they would read and they'd be like, yeah, that'd be good. That would really help people.
Yeah. And that's what proves, like, when you're thinking about what the value provides, then you're doing it right. And I think that that's something that people are not really, because they've been so set in their ways of doing something and being concerned with metrics, they're not really thinking about, oh, like, does this actually provide value to people? Are they actually learning something from it? Do they actually think I'm a thought leader in the space?
And then what I think is crazy, especially to keep it full circle and to bring it back as we wrap up here, is to make it about LLMs. We watch humans use LLMs to solve problems. One of the things that shocked us for one of our clients in a SaaS vertical is 44% of the prompts included a brand in the prompt. How the freak do people get to know what brands to even put in the prompts? because they trust them. They've seen them around. They're like, ooh, I'm looking for a company like SEER Interactive. Okay. Like, why would you put SEER in your prompt in the first place? Oh, I've been watching them for years. Oh, so it's not because they rank number one for a lot of keywords. So what I believe is when you build the trust, by writing stuff that when people read it, they feel that they're smarter because of it, not, hey, here's 10 companies, we're at the top. Duh, nobody's going to fall for that. When you actually take the time to write the content that makes people feel smarter and better about their jobs, they remember that. They remember, oh man, I read something from that company. What's that company? Oh, I read a second thing. Oh, I read a third thing, right? I just found out that there was a CMO group of a bunch of SaaS CMOs, and somebody literally wrote me. I'm going to look it up just like, because you know me, I'm like receipts guy. I'm like, you know, because people be on these calls and doing these interviews, they be making shit up. Like I'm not that dude. I don't know how to live that life. You know, so somebody just messaged me on LinkedIn, and she's part of the CMO group, and I got several that were like this. I'm delighted to invite you to my network. Your ears should be ringing. I learned about you in our CMO coffee club through blah, blah, blah. I'll keep the names out so that people don't try to spam them. But so it's a group of CMOs as part of a SaaS company that like puts together the CMO panel. Several people were like, oh, you should follow Will, you should follow Will, you should follow this, you should follow SEER. That trust is how you end up being a brand in someone's prompt. And then I looked at, because our client is in a space where these kind of people would be, and our data is showing us that 44% of them included a brand in their prompt. How do you become a brand in someone's prompt? It's not because you put I got really good at putting text at the bottom of a page. I got really good at building listicles that list me at the top. If anything, that causes less trust. So then if you're going, how many of my prompts that I'm tracking in my visibility tool include SEER's name, or includes Deloitte's name, or includes this name or that name? Well, none of them. Why would I do that? Because that's how we found 44% of freaking SaaS marketers are searching. That's why. But you don't talk to them. You don't listen to them. You just keep using SEMrush or whatever tool tells you search volume, and you're not realizing that people remember the brands. So they're putting them in their prompts. And how is what you're doing today making you a brand someone's going to put into a prompt? How am I going to track that? How does that help my KPIs? I'm like, I don't know. But for me, it's everything. Like Gary Vee said this once, right? He said, somebody was like, you know, asking about ROI of some tactic. And he said, what's the ROI of your mother? And it's like such a great example, because you're basically like, the ROI of my mom is everything. Like, I don't need to parse it up. Like, the ROI of having a brand that people believe is helpful is everything. Everything flows from that, right?
I love ending on that point. But also, you did come full circle, because this is the point that you've been making the whole time, just with different examples, because this is exactly what people should be thinking about. This is exactly the point. The point is providing value. The point is being a knowledge leader. The point is exploring new ways of doing something. And that is unfortunately was not prioritized for so long, specifically in the agency space.
Let me give you one takeaway here to help people, because I know what people are going to say. Yeah, well, we believe you, but my boss won't let me, my boss, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Your job is to show somebody at the top something like, hey, when you Google this or you do AI searches and we don't show up, they might know you're the CEO, so they might not show you. You got to educate these people and bring them along, right? You got to show them, find something that ranks well from an SEO standpoint, where that same brand has no visibility in the LLM models. And you get to say to your boss, you get to say to your client, hey, let me show you all this easy stuff I could do to win. I might even have to do that for 3 or 6 months. But let me tell you the risks that you're taking. This could happen. It's happened before. Because I know what it's like to have a manager or a boss being like, you got to get us visibility. It's like, okay, one, don't check visibility in platform, because it might filter us out because you're the CEO or you're the CMO, and it shouldn't recommend you your own business because you know it. Then you go through and you say, hey, I can do these kinds of things that will get you visibility. Just so you know, when Google was new and people found easy ways to beat it, look at these times where companies got banned for their brand names. That's a bigger, I'm assuming that's a bigger problem. So then the job to be done is like, how do I get the visibility without doing the low quality stuff? But then also now you can hopefully show your manager, that they need to have a little bit of patience with you to help you work through this. And if you're doing short-term tactics, that's fine. Just know that they're short-term tactics. Just know that they're risky. Don't think that that's the job to be done, is creating listicles to win. Like, that's not the job to be done. You have to convince somebody to buy from you, right? You have to be, it's like, you can't just be visible. You also have to be believed as a brand that could solve a problem for somebody. And then somebody's got to choose you. Stop just focusing on being visible. Do the work that helps you to be believed and eventually chosen as well.
Perfect point to end on. This was absolutely incredible. Yeah, mic drop. Will, thank you so much for joining me today, because this was an absolute pleasure. I think the point that you're making is incredibly important and valuable in all spaces. Like, I mean, everyone is looking to be, to come up in search. And I think that regardless of whether it's an agency or whether it's something else, it's something that's important to everyone. And value should always be of utmost importance. And thank you so much for emphasizing that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely digital cut. Thank you, Will.